This is my biggest concern for the Baylor Bears heading into the 2025 football season, and it could derail what could be a dream season. Let's get Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube, powered through Rogue Media Sports Network. Appreciate you guys making this your first listen today and every day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team each and every day. And today we're breaking down what could actually derail a really promising football season that we're looking forward to. My biggest concern is coming up, as well as analyzing that victory over West Virginia. Baylor did something in that game that actually really gives me some hope, even though it was pretty ugly. I'll tell you what that is. And we'll look at how the Bears can get revenge on Arizona late night, Big 12 after dark tonight. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Look, you don't have to tell me twice. I know we're all excited about this 2025 football season. There's all kinds of hope in the air. Hope springs eternal, and it certainly will during spring football, next month, coming up before you know it. And we're all going to be excited about this team. I think that they are still underrated. They have a lot of players that are underrated, and they could really shock some folks around college football this year. I still believe that. But there is part of this that I have a grave concern over. Offense is going to be fine. You're bringing back one of the best quarterbacks in the country, best returning quarterback in the country, one of the best returning running backs in the country, a good receiver core that's still probably incomplete. You're still bringing back a good bit of your offensive line. Like there are so many things to be excited about on the offensive side of the ball. But I think we, and me very much included, have gotten really caught up in the offensive side and why that is going to propel Baylor to a dream season next year. But we know that defense wins championships. And I've still got some concerns about this Baylor defense because all told, it wasn't a good year defensively in year one of Daddy Dave, defensive coordinator, as well as head coach. And I haven't really looked back on it too much since the end of the regular season, because I think, the sentiment was going into that bowl game that they had figured something out towards the end of the year and they had been playing better defensively. You remember, 3 turnovers forced against Kansas. They obviously shut down a bad Houston offense as well. They came up with a big second half against West Virginia. They only gave up 7 points in the second half of that game. So there were some things. I'm not trying to dump on it now. But then you see what happens in the bowl game against a really good quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier and a good team in LSU. And it feels like we're back to the drawing board here of, okay, did this Dave Aranda defensive coordinator experiment actually work out? It did, in that the team was better. The team was better than where they were at 3-9. But if we're strictly looking at the defensive side of the ball and looking for the improvements in that, by the end of the bowl game, you couldn't say there was many improvements. Like they reverted back to what they were when they were 2-4. And to be fair, the first couple of games of the winning streak, they weren't very impressive defensively. And that falls back on Dave Aranda. So as much as his job is safe as head coach, I think it's reasonable to ask questions about the performance he had as a defensive coordinator this year. And it begs the question of, did they get enough help going into 2025? Because before I kind of go into that part, it is worth noting, this is an incomplete defense right now. The way we look at the offense, I think they're going to bring in another piece or two in the spring portal window. But the way we look at this defense, they got to bring in a couple guys. Because I love having Keaton Thomas back. And I really like some of the guys they brought in out of the portal, kind of in that Keaton Thomas mold, weirdly enough. But there are plenty of strides that this team and this, I almost said franchise, program needs to make to be a defense that can propel a 10-2, 11-1 team. Because offensively and what they're bringing back in total here, like, it feels like a team that can do that can win double-digit games, that can challenge for the Big 12 title, that can challenge for a college football playoff spot. You've got the important parts of it. You've got the quarterback, you've got the running back, you've got the offensive line for the most part. But you got to have the defense. Even those Bryles teams that everyone wants to remember as like awful defensively, I promise you they weren't as bad defensively as Baylor was in 2023 and even in parts of 2024. That's an extremely difficult position to be in, to play defense for a team that was putting up 60 points a game. Very tough to do. And once we've got past that, past the Bryles era, the two really successful teams that Baylor had, the two teams that did go to New Year's Six bowl games, had elite defenses. 2019, Matt Rule, top 2 or 3 in the Big 12 that year, had the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. Then you go to 2021, they had, you were splitting hairs between 1 and 2, Oklahoma State and Baylor, 2 of the top 10 defenses in the country, playing in the Big 12. They once again had the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year in Jalen Petrie. Like, those teams were built on defense and running the ball. I'm not saying that's the only way that they can succeed, but what I am saying is you can't go into this year with the same defense that you had in 2024, even with as special an offense as you had. Because, like, if we're playing the scenario, like if we're playing the exercise of, hey, what if Baylor's, what would it look like for a whole season, I guess, if you had that Baylor defense and that Baylor offense? Because, it took a couple games to get Sawyer Robertson into the lineup here. And I think, I think you're still looking at 8-4. Because, the offense wasn't the problem against Colorado. It wasn't the problem against BYU. They were down 14-0 before they had run 4 plays on offense. So I don't think that was the issue there. And it certainly wasn't the issue against LSU in the bowl game. So you're taking a couple games from the beginning of the season and one at the end where you're supposed to be making all these strides defensively. And was not the offense's fault. So having the great offense and running that back is great. But if you run back this defense the way it was, you're going to be 8-4. You're not going to be 10-2. You're not going to be 11-1. You're not going to be looking at the college football playoff. You're going to be in the same boat that you were this year. And to me, as good a season as this was this past year, that would be a waste to bring all these star players back at big-time positions and go 8-4 again. It would be a waste to me. So there is work that needs to be done. Is this defense good enough right now to go through this gauntlet of September against, Auburn, SMU, and Arizona State? No, they're not. No, they're not. And I don't think Jackson Arnold's a great quarterback, but it didn't take great quarterbacks to carve up this defense last year. In fact, Alan Bowman had one of his best games of the season against Baylor. Kevin Jennings, better quarterback. Sam Leavitt, good quarterback. I've talked about on this show that he's not as good as Sawyer Robertson, and I still believe that, but he's a damn good quarterback. So you're not going to make it through that September. You'd be 1-3 if you have the same defense that you had last year. So, I like having Phoenix Jackson in there. I like Calvin Simpson-Hunt coming in from Ohio State. I love the nose tackle you got from A&M. But you have got some more holes on this defense. You need some help still in the defensive backfield. You really need help in the pass rush, whether that's going to be outside linebacker or defensive end. Can Jackie Marshall put together a better season than he had last year? Because this is a guy that I've loved at times, but overall his numbers last year he wasn't much of a game wrecker, and I think he can be that. So Baylor needs to step up defensively. And yeah, Dave Aranda needs to step things up defensively if they are going to take that next step. We know what the offense is going to give you. We know what Jake Spavital is going to give you. But if this is the defensive genius that Dave Aranda is, if that's still the case, he's got to step that side of the ball up, or they're not going 10-2. They're going to be 8-4 off the golden right arm of Sawyer Robertson and the beautiful two legs of Bryson Washington. Like that's what it's going to be. Again, Bears did earn a gut check victory over West Virginia on the hardwood on Saturday, and there's a lot of negatives I could point to, but I'm going to find you my top positive that could actually help this team down the road from their win against West Virginia on Saturday. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. How about that NBA All-Star game last night, right? Can you believe the points? It's incredible. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off and you want to bet on that fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. Guys, it's so easy. Even I can do it and win money doing it. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Bears get it done in overtime against West Virginia. I had never seen that in a basketball game ever, that an entire overtime went without a field goal. I think there was 9 total points is that right? I think 9 total points in overtime, and they all came from the free throw line. I've never seen that. But it is, when you look into it, par for the course for these two teams that are challenged. They're not very skilled. They can get down in the mud a little bit. Certainly West Virginia can. And a win is a win is a win. Baylor needed to win that game. By hook or by crook, they needed to win that game. And they did it. And they didn't need a huge comeback. They also, I don't think, really blew it down the stretch. This was just a game where they led for most of it, but West Virginia was kind of trading baskets, going back and forth on the odd number for the last 10 minutes of the game. If you just look at the flow chart, you'd think that was a great game. Great game. If you watched it and watched some of the execution down the stretch, you'd be like, okay, it was entertaining. It was a tight game. I don't know if it was a great game. Right? And looking at the box score of this, and certainly watching the game, not the eye test as well, you look up and down this list in the box score, and there's so many reasons Baylor should not have won this game, right? So many reasons. Just looking individually, they don't win games when VJ Edgecombe has a bad game. They did it on Saturday. Or Jeremy Roach giving you 1 point. Him and Nunn combining to give you 7 points. That should lead to a Baylor win. How about shooting 23% from 3? How about turning it over more times and having less assists than your opponent? How about being minus 10 in points in the paint? All of those things point to, second chance points, which is a big one for me. -9, 2 second chance points in the whole game. For a team that doesn't shoot it very well, you can't afford most of the time to have 2 second chance points. So those are all the reasons Baylor should not have won the game. But the crazy part is they won the game. And the thing that gives me hope as a Baylor fan is they won the game. Right? And again, the execution was not terrific down the stretch. There wasn't one thing that I point to say that was the turnaround here. That's what makes me feel better about this team going forward into the wild blue yonder here. By the way, there was 15 points scored in overtime, all from the free throw line. But the thing that reigns over this, the umbrella that's over this, is that Baylor found a way to win. It's such coach speak, but that's exactly what they did. as evidenced by the fact that they scored 9 points in overtime and they were all from the free throw line. That's finding a way to win. Rob Wright was, again, pretty money for them down the stretch. He misses that last shot of regulation. That was the only field goal he missed in the game. But he was executing. Norchad Omier gives you the double-double. I don't think he was great and fantastic, but he played well. He gives you the double-double. That's typically what you need to win. The guy, though, that stands out for me, he ain't always there when you call, but he's always on time. Langston Love, baby. Langston Love comes in here and executes. Or at least he comes in here and does the job for you. Okay, when Langston Love plays, he understands the assignment. And that's been the case whenever he's coming back from injury, which to me is really impressive because usually it takes a while to kind of get integrated back into this thing. Especially earlier this season where he didn't play the first couple of games and he was still recovering from that, from the surgery that he had in the offseason and still getting back up to speed. And then you got to start him against UConn when VJ's hurt. And he does a job for you. In this game on Saturday, shooting numbers, not good. 2 of 8, 1 of 6 from 3. But he gives you 17 because he goes 12 of 12 from the free throw line. He's drawing contact. He's doing what needs to be done. He grabs 4 rebounds from the guard position. He's making plays. He's getting to the line. He plays 42 minutes for a guy that's been hurt for the better part of 2 years here. So when he comes in, is he going to be the best 6 man in the country? Probably not, but that was pretty damn good to give you 17 in a game that needed a little bit of mucking up. He's one of the only guys on the roster that can really get in the mud, like West Virginia wants to do. They want to pull you down into the mud. And Cincinnati will certainly be the same way a couple games from now when you go up to their place. That's a Langston Love assignment. And I got to say, I don't know what the drama was behind the scenes. There was a lot of smoke around whatever fire that was, but he comes in here and he hasn't missed a beat. He's given you what you needed from him. And boy, wouldn't you have loved to seen, no pun intended, Langston playing on those mid to late 2010s Baylor teams, man. Couldn't you see him out there with King McClure and Jake Lindsey, Al Freeman, playing alongside Manu LeConte, a good yin to the yang there, with just some greasy, grimy MFers that could play any style you wanted in the Big 12. That's no disrespect to this team or even some of the great ones we've had the last few years, because obviously the quality in the 2010s wasn't at that level. But man, couldn't you see him out there for those teams? So the thing that I'm taking with me in my pocket from this game is just the fact that Baylor won it. Because as much as they've been a disappointment this year, and as much as it's going to be a scratch and a claw to get into the tournament, this was it. This is scratching and clawing. We say you need to win your home games. We say you need to beat the teams that you're better than. They don't ask how, just how many. And this was the perfect example of that. Now, the overarching problem still is that they don't have enough skill or cohesiveness to have an off night and still win by 10 points. But they can have an off night and find a way to win the way they just did against West Virginia. Another team that's pretty desperate to get in there. Pretty desperate. They have a magic number as well. And by the way, should this game be shrouded in controversy? I watched the game. I didn't think there was any kind of preferential treatment in terms of the calls. But of course, the West Virginia fans are going to be asking that question when the home team is shooting 15 more free throws than the opposition. I thought it was a good physical basketball game. I thought it went the same way to both sides. And boy, wouldn't you love to have Javon Small? Would you rather have Javon Small than Jeremy Roach? Just leaving the question out there. Just leaving the question out there. That's all. The men's team has to turn it around and play tonight, late night, against Arizona, a team that embarrassed them a few weeks ago. How can the Bears turn the tables and get revenge on the Wildcats? That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. The road does not get any easier in the Big 12, right? You know, we talk about these desperate teams that have come to play Baylor the last 2 weekends, UCF and West Virginia. You took care of both of them on your home court. That's great. Now you've got a good team, better than those two teams, that's also kind of desperate because Arizona's lost back-to-back games by a combined 7 points to two of the hottest teams in the conference. Kansas State on the road, tough place to play, and UH, one of the best teams in the country. Basically one possession in both of those games. And oh yeah, by the way, they just kicked your butt a couple weeks ago out in Tucson. Like, kicked the crap out of you. How does Baylor turn this thing around? After a hard-fought physical win on Saturday, you flip it to playing 50-some-odd hours later. A 9 o'clock tip-off tonight. Does this bug anyone else the way that it bugs me? Because I am an old man. I don't like staying up till 11 to watch this team play. I don't like having to keep some of my episode on the shelf so that I can record at 11:15 in a small apartment where people are sleeping. One person, one dog. Like, I don't like that. And I hate that the Central Time Zone gets screwed over by saying, oh, we can put their game at 8 or 9 so that it's 9 or 10 on the East Coast. And it's not like Arizona, every road game they're playing at 9 p.m. Central to get their crowd, their TV crowd in there. It's not like that. So why does this game need to be at 9 o'clock? Why? Am I missing something? Why? Anytime we need to play, if that was going to be the case and they told us that right away, then I just would have said, screw the Four Corners schools. We don't want to do that. And of course, you have to expect every once in a while you're going to play a game at that time slot. Hopefully on a Saturday. Okay, whatever. But Baylor has this one at home, 9 o'clock tip-off home game on a Monday night. And then in a couple of weeks, they play another team from the Central Time Zone at 9 o'clock at home when they play Houston. How does that make any sense? Like, are we serious with that? Of course, at some point, you do need to do one or two of those, but they should be when you're playing at BYU, not playing at home against Arizona. Oh, like and it sucks from a Baylor home game standpoint because let's call a spade a spade. Our attendance is not good on weeknights anyway. Now you want people on a weeknight, on a school night, work night, to come down at 9 o'clock and hopefully get out of there by 11:15. It's a tough sell for our fans, which sucks. But anyway, Arizona comes in losing 2 in a row after having a really nice win against Tech last weekend. I was ready to say, hey, I'm in on Arizona. I've been underrating them. They just beat Tech. I said if they beat Tech, I'd feel real good about this team. And they went and beat Tech. And now they've lost back-to-back games. And they're pissed off coming into this one. They are a veteran-laden team. They don't need to be like, oh, yeah, we beat this team a couple weeks ago. They know that they outplayed Baylor big time, and they out-efforted Baylor big time in that game at U of A. So they know what it takes to beat this team. They know they don't just put on the uniform and trot out there. But this is where I believe Baylor's size is going to get taken advantage of. I almost said Creasa. Kerr Creasy, remember him from West Virginia? Visar was just crushed them last time. Caleb Love didn't even have a good game, and they still beat Baylor. Creasar is that kind of guy. He's big, tall, lanky, going to pull down some boards. This is the game to do it with no secondary option at the 5. Like, I think there's some games where Baylor's not going to get exposed by it. They didn't get exposed by West Virginia. They were actually +4 in the rebounding. This would be a game where they will be because not only did Visar, I think it's Visar. I'm combining him and Kirk Risa for some reason. Visar. Not only did he crush you last time, but this is the best rebounding team in the Big 12. That's where Arizona butters their bread, man. They have an 8 margin of rebounding, a margin of 8. The next best team is like 6.5. So they're a rebound and a half better than the second best team in this conference when it comes to rebounding. Now, they're not a good three-point shooting team. In fact, they're terrible. They're 15th in the conference. So maybe if you can control the glass somewhat and you have a better shooting night from 3 than you had on Saturday, maybe there's a chance. But I'm always straight up with you guys. I'm always honest with my audience because I love you guys. You're the best. I doubt Baylor's going to win this game. I hope I'm wrong. The Baylor fan in me really hopes I'm wrong. But it feels a lot like the game last Monday against Houston, which granted that was a road game versus this being a home game. But it looks like that. It feels like that in the sense that I keep looking down the statistical categories and I'm like, yep, obviously Arizona, advantage Arizona. And there's not enough that I can say, hey, Baylor can maybe get them here for me to feel comfortable that they can win this game. So I doubt it. I doubt they're going to win this game. But maybe you make it a 3-point shooting contest and North Chad goes nuclear on the boards and you hit free throws like you did on Saturday. Maybe you get something out of Jeremy Roach. Maybe you get something offensively out of Jaden Nunn. Seems like a Hail Mary at this point for a Baptist school. Not a good mix. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Score predictions. What do you think Baylor can do to actually win this game against Arizona? And if they do beat Arizona, do we have a new outlook on this team? Let me know down in the comments below. Is this Baylor football defense good enough to actually propel them to the dream season we think they're going to have in 2025? Let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe. Helps out the channel a ton. We're bringing you fresh Baylor content 5 days a week and then most weekends as well. And I like to think we're doing the best job of anybody because of you guys giving me great ideas, coming in with a great community. You guys are what keeps us on the air. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow after a very late night on Locked On Baylor.